At the age of 17, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I must have options. My name is Shola. I'm the only one on the face of the planet. And if you missed part 1 of me sharing my story, please go back and watch or listen to part 1 of this story. And I've decided this week I'm going to continue in a way. So last week I shared about growing up and I titled that podcast, that episode, Money Fights. But this time I'd like to go a little bit deeper and talk about options. Why did I, at the age of 17, decide I have to have options? And this was because I saw that my parents didn't have a lot of options, which I would say contributed in a large part to the predicament that they were in financially. Now, here's the thing. This is not to villainize my parents in any way. This was the world they lived in. You went to school, you came out, you got a job, you worked in that job till you retired, and you lived on a pension for the rest of your life. And there are many people who I would say their age, who are doing that right now, and they're doing just fine. But guess what? The script was flipped. They left the United Kingdom, moved to Nigeria, where life was very different. So, seeing all of that, and listen to the last part 1 for a bit more detail. I kind of go into detail when I talk about money fights. I started to think, okay, I have to have options in life that don't revolve around one thing. Now, one thing my parents did do for me, amongst the many things that they did, of course, was getting me a British passport. I was born in the United Kingdom, therefore that was one option for me. And right after I finished medical school, I took that option. I left the country to seek the proverbial fortune. Okay, so options, right? It's a good idea to think about how you create options for yourself. Now, there's a saying that goes, which I don't know how true it is, but maybe it's true, maybe it's not. They say the average millionaire has 7 to 10 streams of income, okay? Therefore, what are we doing? For the most part, that means if you want to be a millionaire or be wealthy, you have to be able to create multiple streams of income. And that's where the idea of options comes in. Okay, now, hold that thought. The year was 2022, and we had just come out of a pandemic. Now, during the pandemic, as the pandemic was starting, I had this video that I made addressing the plight of physician suicide after a physician in Illinois unfortunately died by suicide. And the general reaction of the public was not sympathy. It was not empathy. It was not, oh, poor guy, what brought him to this point? It wasn't thoughts about his family. The rhetoric being peddled around was that, this guy killed himself, and many of his patients were not vaccinated. Okay, now this podcast is not about vaccination, but of course I'm vaccinated and so are my children. I'm a doctor, hello. But that was the rhetoric that was being pushed out. But there was really nothing about the man, how he lived his life, what happened to him. And even when they interviewed people, they were more talking about how inconvenient it was for them to get into the building because there was police tape around or something like that. I lost it. In a video that was seen by over 100,000 people around the world, I went off on a rant talking about the epidemic of physician suicide, because it is an epidemic. In the US, we lose 400 doctors a year to suicide. I have never had a patient who died by suicide, but I've had colleagues, friends who have. But this is not even about physician suicide. I'm still going back to talk about options. So this is the story within the story. Probably one of the reasons why I don't like telling stories, because my stories lead to other stories. Anyway, here we are. It is post-pandemic. Now, like I said, during the pandemic, I got this viral moment, and all of a sudden people wanted to talk to me. They were sharing this story around the place. Thank you for addressing the epidemic of physician suicide. Nobody wants to talk about this. No one wants to talk about physician burnout. No one wants to talk about physician suffering, etc. So during the pandemic, I got a lot of clients, a lot of clientele. A lot of people were at home, and many people were now listening to what I had been screaming, I'm going to say, for the last 8 or so years. So now we come to this point. I have clients, I was also working for insurance companies, Medicare, etc. And I had these clients coming in, were coaching, they were doing well, etc. Okay. And during the pandemic, as we know, a lot of people lost a lot of business. I mean, I talked to people who were shutting down their businesses and, entrepreneurs and, kind of going through all of that during the pandemic. And of course, I felt for them. But during that time, quite frankly, I actually felt very fortunate that my business was doing very well. Enter 2022. So in 2022, things shifted. People started traveling. People started going back out to work. The disposable income that they had while they were sitting at home doing telemedicine was spent on traveling. I would say people's priorities changed come 2022. And I started struggling. So now, by this time, I've quit my insurance job. I'm like, yeah, I'll just keep doing this. And I have so many clients anyway, homeschooling the kids, looking after mama. And it was just, a lot of stuff going on. When 2022 hit, oh my goodness, I lost a lot of business, a lot of clients, and trying to cover business expenses with personal money and personal credit. And by the end of 2022, I was counting coins to buy gas. Surprise, right? But here's the thing. Remember what I said, my 17-year-old self? Options. Options. I always believed in having multiple streams of income. I've always believed in having second and third sources of income. So during that time, my license was alive and well. And I just dusted it off and started doing locums again and just, got back on it. Got into one of these consolidation programs and, that's going pretty well, actually. I'm still in it, full disclosure. Remember, I'm sharing my story. And, on the face of it, everything looked okay. But I was paddling like crazy underneath. We sat down, talked about different things, options, etc., etc. And one of the ruts that I got into when I became sort of coaching, when I was doing only coaching, was that if my coaching income didn't replace my medical income, then I was a failure. It did replace my medical income for a bit, but then as time has gone on, I start to relearn the power of having options and more options, and not only having options, but actually going out of my way to create more options for myself. The other day, I looked at my husband and I was like, I think I've bitten off more than I can chew, because I am out here creating options. I have multiple things under my business. I have my coaching business. I have my books. I have speaking, keynote speaking, corporate speaking. I've done the TEDx stage, and that's leading to more interest. And then on the medical side, oh my goodness, there's a whole bunch of things I'm doing on the medical side as well. And then, investments, etc., etc. The whole point of creating options is so that if one thing goes away, you can have something else that you can pick up, so that that thing that's gone away doesn't become your downfall. And I can't believe that I went from thinking about I have to have options to, oh, you know what, this thing is going to be the thing I'm going to do, and this is the only thing I'm going to do. In the world of, yes, there are people who are doing one thing, and that is fine. I'm not talking against people who are doing one thing. I'm talking about the fact that if you have the ability to create options, multiple options for yourself, you should do it. You should do it. Because it makes life easier for you. It makes you not stress out about one thing going away. And like I said in my previous video, working on your poverty trauma is very important, because no matter how many options you have, if you're still functioning from that place of poverty trauma, you will mess up those options, or you will, not spend money wisely, or you won't even know how to create more options for yourself. So, I guess I went broke to be able to tell you this story. Anyway, start to look at multiple streams of income in a different way. People say things like, oh, I have a side gig. I always tell people, Beyonce does not call her clothing line a side gig. She has a clothing line. So why are you calling either your second job or your business or your art business or whatever it is? Why are you calling it a side gig? It's not a side gig. It's diversifying your portfolio. And you don't have to be a gazillionaire to start thinking of how you can create options for yourself. And again, back to what I do with clients, this is something I do with my clients, my life coaching clients. Like, okay, what are the options available to you? Many times we don't see these options because we don't look at ourselves as being able to create these options or have these options. Like, okay, well, all I have to do is this one thing and that's it. And maybe not. Maybe not. They talk about it being, this is a gig economy, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, if you look at people that are like celebrities, etc., they're not just doing one thing. Actresses and actors have endorsement deals, they have businesses, they have clothing lines, they have, maybe like some kind of water, some kind of perfume. They act, they sing, they do different things. So if people who are supposedly, you can say they've made it in life, is people look at celebrities that haven't made it, which that's another story for another day. How much more you and I? So sometimes I have to go back and listen to that 17-year-old me that said to herself, I must have options. Create your options. And if you need help, I'm here for you. There'll be the links in the show notes. And as always, see you next time for part 3.